Well, good morning, good evening, good afternoon to you, wherever you might be in the world. I do hope that you're having a wonderful day, a wonderful week, wonderful weekend, all of that stuff and jazz. Um, just for your information, I am actually pre-recording the Sunday videos now, just in case I end up with problems with technology. But that doesn't mean that I won't be able to respond to people's comments if they comment on the wall, because what I'll do is I will record that slide last, and hopefully I will capture any comments during that time frame if I've loaded the video already. But in the meantime, I just want to say thank you, as always, for being part of my journey. Thank you if you're a returning visitor, and thank you to the newbies. And of course, if you haven't subscribed, that would be a bonus. I really don't like asking you guys to do this. I figure that we're all adults and we can remember to subscribe. And if we like something, to do a like or to make a comment. I really do invite people to make comments about their experiences as well. Today, I'm going to be talking about experiences, and the focus today is on a more recent experience that I've had in the process of purchasing crystals. And I think it's going to relate to everybody because um, I actually am now at the point that I'm considering or wishing there was a way that none of us had to buy from these online platforms, especially when it comes to crystals. Now, I'm going to tell you why. Let's get straight into it. I guess the reason why my big issue with buying online is the absolute greed of the selling platforms and the marketplaces, and what is hidden costs. We're going to talk about this in a moment. Now, to put this into perspective, what's happened for me, I've been quite transparent that um, I'm a little bit of a crystal glutton. I absolutely love crystals. And I'm one of those that if I had all the money in the world, I probably would have a house full of them, to the point where I probably would look like I'm living in a crystal cave. Of course, that's not viable, it's not possible, and thank God for that. But what I do enjoy is actually keeping my collection up to date. Now, I stopped buying crystals quite some time ago, and my collection has become more reduced over time, shall we say. I've held on to the favourites. I've given a lot of way because I was getting a bit cluttered with them, especially once I stopped retailing them. So where I'm at now is, as I'm doing all these videos, and I am preparing a lot of them, I'll talk about that in a moment, as I seek out images to be able to use, and I have to be careful the images that I use, I find myself going to different places, different retailers, trying to find images of quality crystals that I can share with you. And also, I do some researching on the mineral facts to try and be as accurate as I can. And that requires not going to the shops, but a lot of crystal retailers and bloggers will put up mineral information. It's not always correct, I might add. So my preference is actually to go to the geology websites and the gems, I can't remember their names at the moment, to go and get my information directly from the sources that actually understand and know the science of the mineral formation and where it's collected and this kind of thing. And in the process, what happened was I realized there was a crystal that I had bought many years ago. I had been looking, I think we're going back maybe 12 years in time. I'd been looking to purchase a specific crystal, and this is why I encourage you to do your own research and homework first when you're looking to buy a crystal. And that includes, if you see something that I put up that you find interesting, go and do further research, because some of these videos that I'm making, I'll be quite clear, and I am transparent when I do the videos, Rainbow Moonstone being one that's right up there, that is a little bit, well, I would say more than a little bit, very difficult to actually describe, because there is white labradorite. And the other thing is to get true and accurate images. Now, if you were able to go into a store, a physical store, you would be able to have a look and you'd have better odds of picking the correct crystal. But anyway, I'm digressing. What's happened is I have become aware that I actually bought a crystal that was not what I thought it was. It was actually something else. Now, I might add, it was still a very good crystal. I'm not unhappy that I purchased it, but I realise now in hindsight that I probably paid too much for this particular crystal. I'm not going to tell you the name of either of these crystals right now because I'll keep that as a surprise until I do the videos. But anyway, further research and a lot of Googling and looking at images led me to realise what had happened, but I still wanted this original crystal because of the properties that it carries. I felt it would be beneficial for my collection. I still do. So anyway, I bought one, didn't I? I found one. And in the process, I'm going to outline it as we go through about the hidden costs that came to me. Now, people probably are not aware that whatever the platform is, whether it's YouTube, whether it's the marketplace sellers and all the rest of it, they charge massive commissions. For example, let's say, obviously, Lorena's Labyrinth is not monetized, and if it was, though, I believe that YouTube as the platform would take about 50% commission, pretty close to it. They get half the fees. So there's a good incentive actually for people to create their own websites and put a, buy me a coffee button on it. But this is just one example. When it comes to the other ones like eBay and Etsy and all the rest of it, I don't know all of the commission rates, but let's just say that when you are buying online, obviously you're taking risks with the product anyway, and there's so much that we lose out on. Okay, I'm going to jump to the next slide. So where I would encourage people to go back and support their local retailers, particularly when it comes to metaphysics, this particular image doesn't actually do justice. I had a few problems trying to find a correct image or one that supported what it is I'm trying to say. When you're buying online, you're taking a risk, okay? We're buying an object, perhaps an egg, and hoping to have an egg. And when it arrives to us, it's something totally different. And it could be within the manufacturer, if you've got a manufactured item. If we're talking crystals, as I said, for me, it was I thought I was buying X, and I end up with Y. So clearly, that can be very disappointing if you've got a lot of expectation on what it is that you're buying. And the thing is that when we buy online, it's you and me that is taking the risk. If we were going to a retailer, a shop locally, they would be the one taking the risk when they buy an import product. And unethical wholesalers would actually be pushed out of the business because retailers certainly would be sharing the information around, and also they would, if they bought a bad batch, they just wouldn't go back to that supplier. So there becomes a little bit more quality assurance there when you actually have a local supplier. But I must admit, I do know why they're going out of business. So if I cast my mind back to what has happened, is this business of buying crystals from overseas. So let's say in Australia, the importers used to buy them from overseas, perhaps China or India or South America or whatever. What has happened is that the people in these countries were actually selling the crystals extremely cheaply, and then they realized that the markups that were going onto the crystals meant, like if they're retailing an item for $2, say, to an Australian supplier, and the same Australian is going out, or the Australian is going out there and selling the same product for $8, right? Then these people in India or China or whatever, they go, why are we selling them for $2 when the Aussies are selling them online and they're getting $8 for the same item? We'll just cut the middleman out and we'll take the $8. And guess what? It works. And of course, yes, Australian and other crystal retailers are going out of business, and it is these suppliers over in the other countries that are making all the money. But I say the suppliers because it's not the providers, okay? The people that are going out there sourcing the crystals, they're not getting fatter and richer, okay? The sellers are. They take their product through to the wholesaler who then sells it. Now, at the same time, so to put this into perspective, you've got your seller who then loads it up onto the platforms. Let's say Etsy, for example, one of them, who sells them there. So then they have to mark up their items, put the costs up to cover the costs of these exorbitant costs of the marketing platforms. And this is why crystals are becoming so expensive. Now, if we went back to having the local retailer, you'd think that there would be a workable solution there. So anyway, that's just how it works. Okay, that's the reality of buying crystals online. So I've just explained how these costs go, okay, and the exorbitant commissions that the platforms get. But what I discovered the other day with my purchase is the additional and hidden costs. Okay. Now, I was quite mortified. I'm going to tell you exactly what happened. It's not really that big a deal, but it certainly makes me review my thinking about online purchases. So where I'm going with this is I made my selection. Okay. I picked my crystal. Now we're talking here about a tumbled stone that is very rare, and it's supposed to have some pretty intense attributes to it as well, okay? And so if you look here, what I've done is I've put down what the costs were for me. So think on this, 44 Australian dollars for a tumbled stone is pretty darn pricey. It's a huge risk, okay? But I'm fairly confident, based on the reviews that I saw online, that the retailer is authentic and that it is the real deal. And when it arrives, I will certainly be able to tell the difference between the real and the fraud, and I will leave my own feedback up. But what was not deliberately hidden, this is probably an error of judgment on my part because I didn't think to check it out. I don't know why I didn't check the freight costs, but the freight cost for this item to come to me is 40 Australian dollars. So we're now looking at an item that I originally thought was a bit expensive for $44 is now actually costing me $84. Okay, pretty exorbitant. We're talking about a tumbled stone here. I hope it's got a lot of flash in it, is all I can say. It does actually have some specific marks about it, and I'm hoping I'm going to get a good quality one. Anyway, where I'm going with this is I paid for it, and then for reasons I'm going to explain in the next slides, I contacted the seller because I felt that I need to. And when I went and checked, I saw that I had a receipt. Now, I don't always open up receipts, especially because I'd paid for this with PayPal, right? Now, by the way, there's a hidden cost to this item as well. I've already said it's going to cost me $84 now because I've got these exorbitant freight charges. Tumbled stone, folks, tumbled stone. But it's also, I think, going to cost me around about $3.50 for the PayPal transaction, which you wouldn't have to pay if you went into a retail shop. You would just pay the money, okay? So that's just one little thing. PayPal, obviously, is making a fortune as well. Anyway, lo and behold, on the receipt, it showed me that at the checkout, they had charged me GST, right? Now, if you're not Australian, you won't know that GST is what they call goods and services tax, and it is not applicable to items that are under $1,000. You've got to pay $1,000 before you have to pay tax. That is the law. And so this platform that I bought this crystal from, they've just put that on at the end of it. Not only did they charge me GST on the item, they charged me GST on the freight, which of course we don't pay GST on the freight at all. So here we've got an overcharge, which when I looked at it, it was about $8.40 because our GST is 10%. And I looked at it, I was unimpressed, and I thought about letting it go. I thought about just going, you know what, just cut your losses. You've already spent $84 on a tumbled stone. Who can believe that? But you've done it now. What's $8.40 from there? And then I thought, well, hang on a moment, actually. I wonder how many of us in Australia go to this platform, which is a big marketplace, and purchase items, see that we've got GST calculated and added to it, despite the fact that it's in the platform's policies that we are tax exempt if our purchases are under $1,000. So they know the laws, they've just charged the GST. Now, the problem with this is, I'm going to explain this one to you as well, is that the government will not ask for GST for this. I don't know how all the accountants work, but it's not, they would only be required to declare to the ATO, our Australian Tax Office, items and purchases over $1,000. So to me, it looks like, and I could be wrong, but to me, it looks like that all of these illicit, because they are illicit charges, they have no legal right to charge this GST on these items, are actually going to go in the platform's pocket, okay? As if they're not happy enough with the commissions they already get. So what I did was I contacted the platform directly and I said, you have added tax, as you do. I've said, you've added tax. I said, it's illicit. I said, I think it's a little unscrupulous, actually. I said, I would like you to refund that money to me, please. And they came back and they said, oh, we're not sure. Let me see if we can do that. I said, you will be able to do that. Because let's be real, you will, they can. So then the person has taken pause, they've come back and they've said, I've spoken to my manager, we can credit that to your account with your next purchase. I said, in my little chat window, as you do, I said, no, I don't want it credited to my account. I'm not sure I'll be coming back to this marketplace to buy anything. I have a few concerns that every time I make a purchase, you're going to charge me tax illegally, right? So please don't put credit on my account. Please just send the money back where you took it from, which is actually my PayPal account. So anyway, that's just a little bit of insight for you there. If they turn around, because you may come up against this, if you've got a purchase where they have taxed you and they shouldn't have done, and I think in the UK it's VAT, value added tax or whatever. If they've done that, check your receipts, and if they turn around and say to you, we'll put it back as a credit, say, no, I want my money back, because they may try and bluff you and say that they can't give you a refund. That would be completely untrue. Of course they can. Now, of course, when it comes to community, this is what I'm trying to do with this channel, is bring people together for conversations, discussions, sharing of information, sharing of knowledge, which happens when we have a community. Now, because these local retailers are going bust, they are really going under at the moment, I've observed. I'm not going to go too far down that. But back in the day when I was doing, we all used to get together. We would regularly contact each other. We might find ourselves gathering at the wholesalers. And sometimes we might just go to the wholesale retailers as well and sit around, maybe have a cuppa. It was always casual. It was always informal. And we would just have a yarn. Sorry, that's so Australian. This is why I call these the yarning. We would just sit around and have a yarn, a yap, a talk. And there was no, if you've got the retailers together, such as myself, I was not a major player. I was just doing a little bit of retailing. Now, where I'm going with this is most retailers are not particularly competitive. Some are, okay, but most of them aren't if they're spiritual, because they recognize that spirit will bring the correct person to the correct person for them. It's that like attracts like energy. So none of us are going to get bent out of shape if we're talking to somebody and actually it's more than just the individual, it's also the crystal, the stone. If somebody comes to us and we're sitting there and they say, are you retail or whatever, we're not going to get bent out of shape, because where that person goes is where the crystal is that they needed to get, or they needed to spend some time with that person. That's why they're drawn that way. But I just want to be clear that, of course, there is always unscrupulous people in every field. So I'm saying that we weren't all competitive. I guess some people were, but they wouldn't have hung around for very long. But anyway, we could share all sorts of information. It wasn't just about, the crystals, the uses. We might have a conversation and talk about, oh, yes, I'm making soap, or I'm making incense, or, this miracle happened, or sharing of energy, or, just any type of conversation, or all very casual, all very light, all very fun. It was a very healthy space for connection and socialization and personal growth and development. It was fun. It really was fun. Everything was always pleasurable. So, I'm now at the point of thinking to myself, gosh, gee, I wonder if I should try and create a community here locally. I'll explore that maybe a bit more. But anyway, I would like to encourage people to find a community locally that sells crystals and metaphysical products to support their local suppliers. I think it's a less risky option financially for people anyway, and it's certainly a healthier option as per personal growth. But going back to, I'm going to put this part of the conversation to bed here and now talk about a metaphysical concern for me when it comes to buying items like crystals, because this was another experience for me throughout this process of buying the crystal that I did the other day, that I'm waiting for and looking forward to seeing, actually. And I mean, I've paid a fortune for it, so I hope it's going to be good. So, this is another comparison and push for the local retailer, right? It's because a lot of the retailers, not all of them, if we're talking about online selling, many of them, certainly the one that I purchased this crystal from, gosh, the other day, I think it was 2 days ago now that I bought it, maybe 3. When we go into a shop and we walk around and we've got buckets of crystals everywhere, and we look at them and we handle them and all the rest of it, we select it ourselves. So we get the perfect crystal for us. But when we're buying online from a retailer, they're doing the selection for us. Now, I believe I have put strategies up for people as part of being able to get the perfect crystal for them when somebody else is selecting it. But when we're talking about retailers who are crystal or energy workers, there's a bit of a difference. I'm trying to think how I can say this without sounding completely insane. If you're new to energy, this might sound a bit insane. Just put it aside and don't worry about it. If you are familiar with energy and an energy worker yourself, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I'm energy sensitive, I'm energy aware, and I can actually feel when people are intruding into my energy. Now, where I'm going with this is I do believe this retailer was well intentioned. She meant well. I don't think she was planning to do any harm, and she certainly didn't do any harm. However, I felt it to be extremely intrusive that the way that she selects crystals is actually by going into a person's energy. And I'm talking about a probe. So I do have videos up about that, but I felt the probe. I knew it went in and I knew where it came from. I knew she was selecting the crystal. So for those people that are not aware of what I'm talking about, it's a physiological change to my body. It gets oh gosh, gee, it could be a buzzing sensation. It could be pins and needles. It could be warmth. It could be cold. Okay, these are examples of when we feel energy. So where I'm going with this is I became aware that somebody was probing my energy fields. I was not happy with it. I was not comfortable. I didn't react, so I'm pleased with myself about that. What I did was I actually contacted the seller, and I didn't make an accusation, because this has a happy ending, by the way. I'm pretty sure it does. Anyway, I contacted the seller and I said something, I think along the lines of, I'm fairly sure that you were selecting my crystal earlier today, and I gave them the time frame. And I don't know if you've posted it yet, something like that. Anyway, the seller got back to me pretty quickly, and they neither confirmed nor denied what they'd done. Some people, they do rituals, shall we say. Anyway, the reason I've got this video here is because from my perspective, when I feel it, my reaction is like this video where it becomes a case of like, oh my God, surely not. Really? Oh, yes, they are. And anyway, basically, the moment I feel it, I'm in there doing a very quick clear cleanse, cut cords and all the rest of it, and then reset my boundaries and make them stronger. I just want to say here and reiterate, I don't judge her harshly or people that do that. I understand that they mean well, and her intention is purely to pick the perfect crystal for me or whoever is buying from her. But what she's not aware of is that she actually doesn't need to do it. There's ways to actually get the information without being invasive or intrusive. And basically, just ask your guides, just do your channeling, ask your guides, and then select the crystal that you're guided to for the person. So I'm just putting that out there if you're the retailer and you actually probe people's energy. And the reason I'm offering this advice is because of the law of karma. What we put out comes back to us. Now, if you're probing a person's aura without their consent, as I said, it's invasive, it's intrusive, and it's like going into a person's home and checking out their knicker drawer, perhaps, when that person is not at home, and certainly without permission. And now, as I said, I'm not particularly bothered in my instance because as soon as I became aware, I dealt with it. I also know that because of the law of karma, what comes around goes around, and whoever is doing this kind of conduct as part of their selling, they're going to actually receive it themselves, and it is usually much harsher and worse than the initial insult, shall we say. I think it's 3 times as much, minimum 3, I would say, because I actually am aware of this. I've known of it for a long time, and I'm going to share you a story about something that happened years ago. And it was, I met a lady with a girl, I'll keep it brief. She had a 9-year-old daughter, and this was at a stage when we were all growing very quickly and becoming energy aware and understanding things like the psychic gifts. And this little girl was highly developed psychically, and for some reason, after I met her and I connected her with other people, whatever, it was a small group, this little girl started to develop very, very quickly. And I may as well be straight up about it. We're in Kalgoorlie, which is a mining town. I think I've told people about this before. And in this town, it really is like the wild, wild west. You have a lot of bars and hotels with women that are scantily clad inside of them, and they're called erotic dancers or whatever you want to call them. But anyway, these bars are full of them. And anyway, the woman was telling me that because she turned up at my doorstep, I'm a bit all over the place here. Okay, the kid was developing very quickly with her gifts. The mother established when driving her home, because the little girl turned around and said, "Oh, that lady's rude," as a young child would do. And the mum said, "What are you talking about?" She said, "In there, mum," she said, "they're dancing and the girls are lying all over the men and doing rude things." Right? And of course, there was no way the child would have known unless she actually saw it for herself. So she said the mother was retelling me this. And she said, "Look, I was really quite disturbed, actually." She said, I said to her, "You can't be seeing what's going on in there." And as a mother, she was skeptical. She was like, "Well, it's a child. She's fantasizing. She's making stuff up. Somebody must have told her what happens in these hotels that she's going to." So she said they went home and they decided, basically, she did what I did to my kids, which was, well, prove it. Go over to your grandfather's house on the other side of Australia and have a look and see what he's doing right now. So they did a lot of this stuff. They had a lot of fun with it, by the way. Apparently it was hilariously good fun. And after they had gone in, they would then test and phone up the grandparent or person's house that they basically were astraling into, and find out what was going on, get it confirmed. And then at some point in the night, apparently they said, "Why don't we go over to Anna's house? Let's see what's happening at her place." Now, of course, I don't mind when I've got friends doing stuff like this. And the way it came to me was the lady turned up at my house about 9 o'clock in the morning after she's dropped a child off for school. And she said, "I owe you apologies. I am here to apologise." She said, "Last night you weren't aware." She said, "But my daughter and I, we were actually in your house spiritually." Well, this was all a new thing to me. I didn't know until that stage it could actually happen. So I said, "Tell me what happened." She said, "Well, we were just playing." She said, "But," she said, "we probably should have got your consent before we came in." And I said, "Well, that probably would have been nice, as you do." And she said, "But the thing is," she said, we stopped after we came into your house. She said, "We stopped doing it." She said, "Because your guide bailed us up." She said, "Well, I wouldn't say bail." She said she was very kind about it. She said, "But she was very firm, and she let us know that you would not appreciate us coming in and out at our convenience, and that there would be karma. There will be karma for what has happened, and that the karma was out of my control." So it's not like I wanted to pay her back, because I didn't have a grudge about it, but the learning is through the doing as well. So apparently my guides had said, with kindness, expect that there's going to be some karma come your way. Once you've done this, it will come back at you. So where I'm going with this is the karma did come back, and the lady, it wasn't through me, it came back to her via another direction. And let's just say she was extremely distressed, and she and her daughter shut their gifts down. Okay. I hope, I've not caught up with them for many years. So I don't know if they ever picked their gifts up again. I'd like to think that the daughter did at least. But where I'm going with this is I don't determine, I'm not the sword of karma, okay? Karma is going to happen. It is the consequences to actions, and the universe will deliver it at the appropriate time to the right person. So if you are misusing your gifts, I would be very careful about it and just take stock, have a think. How am I going to feel when it comes back at me, especially if it comes back tenfold, maybe, depending on how you were practicing and acting before it happened. But anyway, that is my little bit for today, the chitter chatter. I'm interested to hear your thoughts, your beliefs, and if you've got any experiences that have happened. I'm just going to jump into a channel update now, though. So the crystal playlist is going along really well, actually. I've done a lot of templates. I'm doing a lot of transcripts. So I am getting ahead of myself. I have a plan without being rigid in my delivery of the content. So I've created a list of about, I think I've got about 170 crystals that I love, that I've, held, experienced, whatever, because I've been very fortunate, very blessed in my life. And so I want to be able to do a video for each of those. And where I say there's flexibility, it's kind of like what's happening on the day as to which one I'm going to load. So I'm working on a couple at the moment. I've got to put some voices on them, and they will be published first. And then I kind of go back and I look at the templates that I've already created, and I start doing the transcripts for those, which is my notes, because obviously I don't stick tightly to the transcripts that I've got. They're just a guide for me when I start to talk about the videos. But where I'm going with this is, of course, you're always invited to put your own contributions up. In the absence of a local community, I feel for growth, it's really important that we all talk about potentially our experiences, or to ask questions about what might be a good quality crystal, and how to separate the, what do they call it, the mud. Well, actually, there's an Australian saying, I don't think I'll use that one. Chaff from the hay might be a good one when it comes to your crystal selection, and to get a bit more of an idea on how you can use them for specific purposes and get benefit from them. And where I was going with this conversation as well was actually to invite you, if there's a crystal that you would like to know more about, just put it up, just respond, make a comment, let me know which ones you're interested in, and I will respond to that. Now, that may be a response saying, okay, I've started a video for that, and I will prioritize that for completion and loading onto the playlist for you. And it could just be, actually, I don't have any experience with that particular crystal, but I will go and do some research on it. And the other thing is too, that I can actually, because I will check with my guides. I'll create the space where I can try and bring through some extra information about specific crystals as people ask. So anyway, that will be an open invitation to you going forward. So if you're not aware and you haven't seen it yet, the Labradorite video has been loaded already. That's published. Labradorite is actually one of my favourite crystals that I will often hold when I'm actually doing the readings and services. And I'm particularly drawn, obviously, to the blue and green flash that you see here. But there is some beautiful purple as well. But definitely I like the rainbow one. But that video is up. The emerald video, that one was also loaded on Thursday. I kind of made a mistake with the way that I was loading. But anyway, as I said, there's no real rhyme nor reason to my rationale when I do the publishing. And so you can access the one on emeralds right now on the Crystal Magic playlist. The one on Tibetan Tektite, that's going up next week, and I decided to prioritise it. Besides the fact that it's not really an attractive looking crystal, it's not particularly visual and appealing to the eye. It's got some amazing properties to it, particularly when it comes to boundary protection and helping people to retain a level of stability and clarity of thought during extremely difficult circumstances. And I'm going to say here, I go into more detail on the actual video itself, but it's a crystal that I used to wear when I was working at the front line of human services, the real pointy end of people with complex problems and huge suffering. And if you work in these kind of industries, they often train and teach people who work with victims of trauma that they can develop vicarious trauma basically through hearing the stories. Well, Tibetan Tektite is something that I would recommend to all of these workers because it's part of creating health and being the best support that you can be to these people in these situations without actually compromising your health. Now, I know many crystal lovers will be really shocked that I've actually included this particular crystal, and I use quotation marks when I say it, on the playlist. But this is because of my experience of working at the front line. I too am a crystal snob, and I too was extremely surprised by what I observed. So I'm putting up a video. I've had plenty of feedback that it does work. How it works, I'm not sure. I don't think it really matters, but as long as it does work. And I think that's kind of an interesting story in itself. Now, just to be clear, the images that we've got here on the screen, this is synthetic opalite. There is actually real opalite. I'll see if I can find some information on that, or at least some images, because it's extremely rare. And I know the one that I'm thinking of is called Budgerigar opalite. So obviously it's Australian, and it's found in Australia, but I'm not sure there's many photos of it around. But I'll just see how I go. I might do a video on natural opalite. I think for the time being, I'm just going to keep this slide in as a reminder to people that, as they start to feel and experience energy, that there is this video for them to actually try and work out what their body is trying to tell them. And there's a link for that. If there's not, remind me. If I forget to put the link up, remind me, and I will put it in the description. Now, before I close out for the day, just a reminder that we've got all these different playlists with content on it. And of course, when I talk about the law of karma, which I did earlier in the video, we're talking about universal law and spiritual law. And if you want to know more about it because you're not familiar with it, just go and do a search on the universal law playlist and you'll find it. Other playlists, I guess, that relate to the content that we've got on this video is actually stuff to do with chakras, stuff to do with self-help, angels, of course. Oh, look at that. I never realized I've got that in twice, but angels are always helpful. And then we've got some mainstream health and well-being stuff as well. So, my friends, if you can't tell, I'm starting to flag a bit. It's a bit late here, and I really shouldn't be recording videos in the evening, I don't think. But for today, I'm going to say thank you very much again for being part of my journey. I wish you a wonderful, blessed week ahead and wonderful, glorious day and all the blessings in the world. And I shall catch you on the next video. Take care for now. Bye-bye.